Justin, welcome to the show. Thanks for joining me.
Yeah, this will be an interesting, interesting conversation. Most of the people I talk to in Colby, KOLB, they're in like the 3393 range, like pure visionary, ADHD, ADD. You're you're the opposite, Colby, of basically everyone I talk to. More like a COO integrator type Colby. So I'll be very interested to see how your brain works and how it collaborates with mine.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I'm looking forward to diving in, and we were chatting a little bit before this, and yeah, this was the first time I took the Colby. I'm not surprised by the results, and I'm really excited to see how this conversation goes. And our mutual friend Randy speaks very highly of you. So, Justin, for people that don't know you and your story, why don't you give us the spark notes? Who you are, where are you coming from, what are you doing now?
I live a, pretty simple life. For those who can see this or hear this, the background noise, I'm in my backyard right now. So, I'm doing one of two things during my day. One, spending time with my family, my wife, pediatrician, full stabilizing human. She's now the COO of second company. And then our two children, who are both 9 quick start, 2 follow through maniac visionaries. They're 9 and 10. So I'm either spending time with them or connecting the world's top visionaries to other world top visionaries. So not humans, not consultants, not business owners. That stuff bores me. So purpose of my life is to be connecting superhero for every visionary. Again, visionary who shares their stories with the world, not there. So that's my day every day. It's a lot of fun.
That's super cool. I love the distinctions, the world versus their world.
Yeah.
How did you get into this type of work?
Well, so that's a fair question. That's a fair landing the plane question. Like none of this has worked for me at all. All companies to me are just an extension of purpose. So like I was a journalist for 20 years. So you don't get into that for like scaling and employee count and I don't even care about that stuff. It's confusing to me.
Yeah.
And then I was an entrepreneur who happened to be a journalist, so never understood negative news. If it bleeds, it leads, political stuff. Like I don't understand it. When I was an entrepreneur who happened to be a journalist, I was connecting and writing about cool people changing the world. And now I'm writing about connecting cool people changing the world. So there's really been no difference other than now it's for the partners, as opposed to writing for a media company. That's the same thing.
Similar work, just different vehicle now, I guess.
Right. Yeah. So I can hear your engineering synthesized brain. You're a simplifier. So then most of my days talking to ADD folks that are all over the place, and they create all these things that help everyone, but they're all over the place. So I can hear blah, 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 and then simplify message and then connect them to other visionaries who interview them. And then they do whatever they want with that. They create companies or, collaborations, relationships, best friends. And then I get to see my family and do what I like to do.
That's so cool, man. That's so cool. So journalism for 20 years, were you working for a paper? Like, forgive me, I don't know much.
No, it's all good. Any job you can. They just gave me weird jobs to do because they didn't know what to do with me. The previous place I guess worked at before starting First Company, which is a global PR firm that only partners with visionaries. The second company is my partner. He does 8 and 9 figure deals all day. That's not my world, but we created LinkedIn without the BS, high price point, invite only connectivity platform. So a journalist who's a journalist wouldn't build that or wouldn't have an idea to build. So, but before starting First Company, I was at a site called DNA Info Chicago. It was owned by Joe Ricketts, whose family owns the Cubs. He was going to franchise it around the country. It was in New York and Chicago. But they decided to unionize, so he shut it down. I left before he shut it down, but I was just connecting cool people changing the world who were based in Chicago or had Chicago connections. Now it's the same thing on a global level.
So you've just always been a connector?
Well, you're either born like this or you're either born someone top visionary on planet or you're not. I mean, top entrepreneurs are usually, but not always, again, usually not always though, aliens within their own family, community, and verticals. So the only people that understand us are top entrepreneurs on planet. So I was always talking like this, and then, you know, you're just born like this. So my father was 61 when I was born. My mom was 27. My dad would be 107 now if he was alive. He was a World War II hero, shot down multiple times in combat, many times without a parachute. He just got back into a plane. So that's, then he kept a diary of him fighting in Battle of Hurtgen Forest toward the end of World War II. I found it after he died. I write exactly like he does. And he was in his late 50s. A drunk driver hit him head on. The drunk driver was killed. My dad broke every bone in his body and survived. And then he woke up, and my mom was his nurse. My mom was 27 when I was born, 34-year difference. And then most of my days talking to the world's top entrepreneurs. I haven't met anyone with more hustle than my mom ever. So I'm the byproduct of that.
It's a good pedigree.
Well, it can be. I mean, my youngest brother, same genetics. He was 146 IQ, 140 above his genius. That's most people I talk to. He died of a drug overdose. I'm 139 IQ, one below genius. Most people I talk to are 140 and above. So it can be a good pedigree, but it also can be, not the best too. So
yeah.
I probably would have been something like that, but I married a full stabilizing human pediatrician she's also a 139 IQ. So people like me usually marry stabilizing humans, a teacher, social worker. So if I hadn't done that, that would have, been a much worse situation.
You mentioned teacher and social worker. So can you define stabilizing human for people that don't understand?
Sure. So in Colby world, because I see the world in numbers, and frankly, you're Colby, it's a stabilizing human Colby, which is very rare, again, to be entrepreneur. But so Colby, 10 is the highest number. Most people I talk to are 8, 9, and 10 quick starts. A 10 quick start, just for data purposes, is 1 out of 200 humans. So it's very rare in human world. In my world, it's like 1 out of 9.
Mm-hmm.
A 10 quick start can either be a sociopath or like a pure genius visionary. There's really no in between. Most people I talk to are 9 quick starts, 8 or 9. So a visionary is usually, but not always, a 7, 8, 9, 10 quick start with a 1, 2, 3, 4 follow through.
Mm-hmm.
So that's literally the opposite of you. You're a 4 quick start, 7 follow through. My wife is a 4 quick start, 7 follow through, stabilizing human. I am at 7 quick start with 6 follow through. That's incredibly rare. I have high quick start and high follow through. So the stabilizing human in professional world, teacher, social worker, a lawyer who's a lawyer, not an entrepreneur who happens to be a lawyer, a CPA who's a CPA, not an entrepreneur who happens to be a CPA, a human, a nurse. And more of the world is like that. I mean, if everyone was like me, it'd be a total disaster. It'd be just anarchy, chaos. And then people like me usually marry a stabilizing human because hey, don't forget to pick your kids up at school. Say thank you to that person. Mm-hmm. Be kind. So and then my wife takes more chances in life now because she's been around me and enough other maniacs that she sees what taking chances can lead to and all the freedom for that. So we've both won, and then our kids get to see, they're 10 and 9, they get to see this world even exists, and then they can do whatever they want with it.
Yeah. It almost like, I guess it takes away any boundaries. It takes away any
boundaries, no box. Yeah.
Yeah. That's right. Super cool.
Yeah.
Justin, what matters most to you right now in your work?
Tremendous question. You're a great simplifier. So there are only 2 questions that I ask myself every day that matter. I'm a very simple person, and my entire life is good patterns that become good habits, and the best habits become the best rituals. So good patterns become good habits. There's bad habits. A lot of entrepreneurs have bad habits: drinking, overworking, cheating on their spouses, never having a family. Those are bad habits. but my best habits become best rituals. So the two rituals are the two questions I ask every day that matter. These are the only two things that I ask myself that actually matter. Only two. One, did I have a good experience that day with my family? I have found every day, certainly since having children 10 years ago, the answer to that has been yes. And before then, it was yes, too. So that's one. And then two, did network grow on a global level? Doing this as an example of that, talking to a visionary, connecting him to another visionary is an example of that. So I found every day the answer to that is yes as well. And I found all this business owner stuff actually takes care of itself with those two fundamental ritual important questions answered every day.
That makes sense. And
Right.
I'm
That's
surprised. I'm not surprised to see my brain being concerned about connecting all the dots, having had the Colby conversation.
Yeah.
It's at what point did you become like really conscious of this way of, not this way of seeing the world, but like this way of communicating around it? Does that make sense?
Yeah, makes perfect sense. Makes perfect sense with your brain, and then a human wouldn't understand what you're talking about, but I'm not, we're not human. Your brain processes like an engineering human, which is interesting, but you're not a human. So I was always talking like this, and then I've always seen the world in numbers. I didn't really understand the Colby aspect of it until I took it in 2019. That's right before joining an entrepreneur group called Strategic Coach.
Oh, Dan Sullivan, right?
Yeah. So Dan's a 2-2-10-4. He's a 10 quick start, 2 follow through. I see the world in numbers. I'm also in Abundance 360. Dr. Peter Diamant is very grateful. He wrote the forward for Epic Life, the latest book I wrote. I'm very grateful for that. He's a 4-3-8-4 Colby. So that's an 8 quick start, 3 follow through. That's a typical visionary. And then I'm 8671. I've never met another 8671. I don't think I will. It's a pure unicorn score. My partner's a 1596. That's a pure unicorn. I mean, that's never made. He's the only one fact finder I've ever met. I've just started really focusing on IQ more. Have you done your IQ?
No, I have not.
Okay. If you did, I would have guessed your score. I'd say you're right around 140. 140 and above is genius. That's less than 1% of the population. I just posted this like the other day, and people were really receptive to it. Most people I talk to are 140 and above. When you get over 160, there's no human understanding. The 150s can they create systems and stuff like funnels or AI. When you get 140 and above, though, you start to have a problem with family and understanding relationships, unless like in the low 140s, high 130s, if you marry a stabilizing human like I did, they can kind of teach you that. The lowest IQ of anyone I've talked to in the last 2 years is 128 for a human. That's really high. 160 and above, no human understanding. Those people don't have relationships. 170 and above, they have no idea what's going on. But I can understand them.
Mm-hmm.
But no, I mean, that's how I see the world. Because when you know the answer, here's the answer, and then here's the non-answer. You just ignore it. You eliminate it.
Yeah. And I'd imagine if you know how people operate, here's my engineering brain coming out again, but if you know how people operate, you can figure out how to work together most effectively, bring things to life faster, essentially.
Well, there's two things from that. One, I would agree with that in terms of a business organization structure. Again, for second company, I'm the visionary. My partner's a visionary, and then my wife is she's a full integrator. Again, somewhat similar score to yours, which would make in Colby world. She has a doctor engineering type scientific brain.
Mm-hmm.
So from a structural business standpoint, 1, 2, and this is where my world is mostly different than even visionaries, but all I do is connect visionaries to visionaries. So my intros are usually like 3393 meets 2210-4. Then you know who you're talking to immediately. So it's actually a way of seeing who's really a visionary. I mean, there can be exceptions. Most visionaries are 8, 9, and 10 quick start. I'm actually less than that. When I was talking to the head of Colby, you can be a visionary 7 or under quick start, but you have to have extraordinarily high IQ and or EQ. You can game the system, but most visionaries are not. Most visionaries are at least an 8 quick start. So that's why I asked about your IQ. It's got to be. You wouldn't be able to do what you're doing without that.
Yeah, well, I appreciate it. I'm gonna take
Not
that.
a compliment. Not a compliment.
Well, I interpret it as such. So I'll take that and I'll let you know what I come up with. You asked me an interesting question before we press record, which was how long ago I took the Colby. Does that vary often? Like as humans grow and develop, like can you build these skills? Can you show up differently?
So it changes 12% of the time. Where I have seen it change is they're a true visionary and I'm talking to them and then they say their score is like a 4 quick start. I go, you're not a 4 quick start. And then they had taken it this again, it only changes 12% of the time. So it's not a lot, but in my world it would, because I only talk to visionaries who they had taken it a couple of years ago and they were surrounded by humans or non-visionaries, and so they had thought they had to be like that, and then they were actually being themselves when they really took it, and then they come back to me, they're like, oh, I'm an 8 or 9 quick start. They're like, how'd you know that? I go, because I just heard what you were saying. I actually think your score's one, you just took it, but I think it's pretty accurate. I can hear how you synthesize, and then how it's just to scale or to even hire someone. I mean, that's your Colby. I can hear it. I mean, so I would say yours is very accurate.
Yeah. Have you seen that in, well, I mean, I know you're communicating only with visionaries for the most part. Like I think on some of the trials and tribulations that we've had in the business world, and I say we, but like the team is now super lean. Would you say in your experience that has been because I was trying to straddle that line between visionary and integrator?
Oh, you're your own worst enemy. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Again, that's not a compliment or an insult either. That's your brain.
It is.
You're an overthinker. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm not.
Yeah.
So a human would be insulted by that, but you're not a human. You're just an overthinker.
Yeah.
And that's fine. Like overthinking to me is pointless, because someone who's their own worst enemy, how can I help someone who can't help themselves? That's what I mean. So here's my litmus test. This is my litmus test. My father was a World War II hero, shot down multiple times in combat, many times without a parachute, got back into a plane. So most people can't do that. They just make excuses. I'm not like that. I just do it. So that's the only way to learn anything. You just do it.
Yeah. It, as you're saying that, all I can think about is, of course, overthinking makes no sense because you're wasting all that energy.
Okay, but finish.
So, I thought you were going somewhere with that.
No, I was waiting for you to finish but then you overthink.
Yeah. Well,
okay, so it doesn't make sense, right? It's illogical.
Yeah.
Yet that's your brain, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So
yeah.
Do you have a family, by the way?
I don't have children, if that's what you're asking.
But you're married?
Yes, I got married about 9 months ago.
Okay. Is your wife a stabilizing human, or is she more of a visionary?
I would say, if I had to guess, I would say she's more of a visionary.
That would make sense.
Yeah.
You're actually the stabilizing human you do whatever you want. I would recommend she takes the Colby.
Yeah. The language that I've always used is like, I would never call myself what I call a thoroughbred entrepreneur, which I would probably associate more with visionary. And that language, not important, but I would associate that with her.
Right.
Yeah.
That would be a 3383 or something. So most people, there's 4 types of visionaries, only 4. Not human, not business owner, not consultant. That's a very painful conversation for me. Very painful.
Mm-hmm.
So 4 types. One is ADD, ADHD, not a disorder. It's a sign of genius mislabeled by humans. So they're all over the place. 2, minor Asperger's, ultra focus, very low in empathy. My wife, who's a doctor, has unofficially diagnosed me with that. I would agree with that. 3 is dyslexia. 30% of visionaries are dyslexic. And then 4 is very high IQ and or EQ. A regular human just couldn't, they're not capable of it. They don't have the brain to do it. It's not a bad or good thing. They just don't. Because if they did, they would do it. So I wouldn't be surprised if your wife has ADD or ADHD, but again, not a disorder.
Yeah. Did you always believe it was a superpower?
Well, again, people like me are usually aliens within their own family community verticals. So I spent most of my life talking to people who didn't understand what I was talking about. And I do not have ADD or ADHD. I have hyper focus, probably minor Asperger's, and very high IQ and extraordinarily high EQ. My EQ is off the charts. So I was always talking like this. And then as an entrepreneur who happened to be a journalist, I was actively seeking out people who had, overcome a lot of things or never made excuses, because like consciously, unconsciously, I needed to talk to those people. But I didn't really know who I was until starting first company 6 years ago or so with zero business background. I'm like, oh, and then really since COVID, I'm 46 now, but so, since COVID, really talking to people on a global level who understood it. And then I'm like, oh, I'm just not a human in any capacity. I just didn't know that until, talking to people who really understood, and then I could learn from them.
So 6 years ago, you built the first company. When did you build company number 2?
We're building it right now. Epic Life that came out in August. It talks about how we started it. This was before my wife joined as COO. She's really the glue, because she's a stabilizing human who's harmony 1 and strength finder. So she's harmony at the home and then harmony in company. But the Epic Life book's about how to build collaborative global companies while putting your loved ones first. That's what visionaries want. They just don't know how to do it many times because they're the most damaged person with the best coping skills, and they use the coping skills to create all this stuff, and then they torch their family or never have a family in the process. So that's why I wrote the book. But now it's really starting to take off, and my wife has created the onboarding process and how to do all that, and so it's really exciting. I don't even go to the meetings with her and my partner Mark. They do all.
I mean, that's the power of a good partnership, I guess.
Yes.
I love putting the family first piece. This is a lot of the work with our clients. We work with a lot of door-to-door sales guys. And
sounds terrible.
It's the reason I love working with them is they think like athletes, and
well, they are. There's no difference.
Yeah.
By the way, they're probably all 3.393s, Colby's. They're at least 8 or 9, 10 quick start.
Yeah, you have to be, I think. I've noticed it not only with them, but with a lot of our connections in the entrepreneurial space. Putting the family first gets missed.
Yeah,
I would argue outside of just visionary, but I don't think it's very commonly intentional or like.
No, well, that's why I wrote Epic Life. So I hear blah 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 blah. Simplify, answer, blah blah blah. ADD, all over the place. So I talk to 1 to 2 visionaries every week that have let entrepreneur life destroy their family life or prevented them from having a family. And then I was a journalist, 20 years. So top athlete, top entertainer, top whatever. Now global PR firm, global connectivity that only partners with top people or ones who won't make an excuse. So there's only 2 commonalities with those people. Only two. 1, same mindset, no excuses, do whatever it takes, no excuses. 2, they had at least one person, could be a parent, coach, uncle, grandparent, teacher, mentor. They had at least one person that genuinely cared about them, believed in them. I haven't met one yet that had 0 people care about them. That would be fascinating. That'd be fascinating. And then these are the four things that separate visionaries from humans. These four things. 1, bankruptcy or potential bankruptcy. 2, depression. 3, highest level of anxiety that you can imagine. 4, likely and or possible traumatic experiences as a child or young adult. So for humans, consultants, business owners, those are excuses. Visionary, figure it out. And then the visionary has the highest coping skills, highest EQ, highest IQ, and then they use those coping skills to create all this stuff, and then they torch their family in the process, or never have. That's what entrepreneur life actually is. Very similar to sales life.
Yeah.
That's why.
Do you think it's just awareness that helps solve that problem?
Yeah, so you're a great simplifier. One of the chapters in Epic Life is winning the wrong game. And so whenever someone asks, well, what's the first step? I talk about winning the wrong game. One of my friends, he's a genius, Jesse Elder. I was asking him why all these entrepreneurs are focused on cars or company or exit. And he's like, oh, they're just winning the wrong game. I'm like, oh, that's a good idea. I'll write about that. So again, only questions that matter to me are spending time with family and then building network. That's winning the right game. And then so making the entrepreneur without exception is smart, without exception. Not a silver spoon. That's a different discussion. But a true entrepreneur visionary, high IQ. You couldn't be an entrepreneur. You couldn't without a high IQ, EQ. So even asking that question, what game are you winning? That's the first step, because they're smart. They just might not even be aware of what game they're winning. Yeah.
I really like that question. One of my mentors, who Randy is really close with as well, I learned this from him. He said,
Who is that?
Cole Hatter.
Oh, yeah.
So he shared this lesson, and I don't know where he learned it from, but he's like, I never want to get to the top of the mountain and look over and realize I climbed the wrong one.
Right. Bad mountain. It's whenever I write a third book, there'll be one called Pyrrhic Victory. Joshua Gordon, he owns a like a cell phone mobile company, San Francisco.
Mm-hmm.
So Pyrrhic, most of my days talking to people like that, and then they say something once a month. Somebody like that will say something truly powerful. I'm like, oh, that's a good idea. I'll write a chapter about that. So he's like, that's just a Pyrrhic victory. It's the wrong victory. You torch everything that's meaningful for a big exit or something. It's just silly. So
yeah. Where my brain goes is, and this is obviously illustrating that I'm not a fast, quick start. The fear would be that
nope. That's no. Visionary would never. No.
Yeah.
Wrong answer.
Yeah.
Nope. There's no, at the highest level, there are no excuses. That's what separates entrepreneurs. Right. So that's not, the human would think that comes off as rude or insensitive, but that's not rude or insensitive. That's actually being honest, which visionaries actually appreciate that.
Yeah.
They appreciate it.
Yeah. I could see my brain spiraling past it. So there, I understand it. Okay, let me ask you this, and then we'll start to switch gears here a little bit. We talked about the two. You have the PR company, and you have the high touch point LinkedIn. I can't remember the exact adjective you used, but
LinkedIn without the BS. Randy's I think, knock on wood, I think he's joining today.
I think I just saw him comment that on something LinkedIn related.
Yeah. So people like him, they can't wait.
Yeah.
That's what I mean. And then people like him will just bring in more people like him.
Yeah.
That's it. Yeah.
When you look at the businesses that you're building, obviously I love the massive family focus. And I guess I'm curious, like, I could see some commonalities between the two, but like, what's the purpose that you're chasing? Is it?
No. I'm not chasing any. No. Okay. That's a good question.
Yeah.
Earl Nightingale, he's the OG. He's the OG before Dan Sullivan or before Peter Diamandis, before Tony Robbins. Earl Nightingale. So my favorite quote of his, he started doing recordings when audio recordings first started happening. So early 1900. So his, my favorite quote of his is, success is the progressive realization of a worthy ideal. Success is the progressive realization of a worthy ideal. So my worthy ideal, zone of genius, unique ability, purpose of life is to be connecting superhero for every visionary who shares their stories with the world. So that's it. There's no chasing anything. That's just what I'm doing. I found again, and then I spend time with my family. So all this other stuff is taking care of itself because I'm constantly in zone of genius. The business owners, they chase things because they're winning the wrong game. That's the only game I'm winning is spending time with my family and growing network. And again, that's why I wrote Epic Life, because I'm like, you don't have to. It's how to build collaborative global companies while putting your loved ones first. Putting family first actually is the key to everything, because it's the litmus test. It's the litmus test. And then my litmus test is talk to a visionary who won't waste time, will take action and make investment. I'll never stop talking to them because they allow me to spend time with my family and its purpose of life. Someone who wastes time, they're just taking away time for me and my family. So I just stop talking to those people because they're not going to do anything anyway. It's pointless discussion.
Yeah. So would you say that staying in your zone of genius, is that winning the right game for most people?
Tremendous. Well, I think that's for most people. I don't know how to answer that. Well, maybe I do. You got me to think a little there with my high fact finder there. Let's start with this. For any true leader or visionary, absolutely, that's the most important thing. Because if a great leader will attract the right people, and then I just connect leaders to leaders because they help everyone else. I never think about everyone else. I just connect the right leader to the right leader because they create everything that helps everyone else. That's how I help everyone else. I do think the only two things that I care about on a 10x, 100x level, I think this does apply to everyone. I think it does. I don't, tell me if I'm wrong, but so one is having a good family life, experiencing life with my family. That's 10x. So if you have a good family life, you have a good life. I have never met an exception to someone who has a good family life that has not had a good life, regardless of whether they're a maniac or not. And then two, network on a global level. When you do that, you create endless opportunities for your network and yourself. And again, I found all this other business owner stuff takes care of itself. So I do think if your zone of genius is, I don't know, helping salespeople become better salespeople, then stick to that. If your zone of genius is to be a good teacher for 5th grade children, be that. From a work perspective, I think there's two reasons while most people are miserable. Two reasons. One, they never find out what they like to do and what they're good at. So they're doing something 8 to 10 hours a day, 5 days a week, sometimes more, that they don't like doing or are bad at. That's not good. And then two, they find out what they like to do and what they're good at, and they never do anything about it. That I don't understand. That's illogical to me. If you find out what you're good at and what do you like to do and you don't do anything, or you make an excuse or let fear get in the way, no, that's unacceptable to me, because you're being your own worst enemy.
And I guess the follow-up I would ask is, how can the person listening to this, maybe they're new to these concepts or these tests that you've been talking about and the results and personalities and whatnot, like how can that person listening utilize this information to make a broader impact in the world?
So a true visionary would immediately, this is what happens. Thank you for asking. This is what happens in these discussions. And it is based on the audience, but if it's an audience of, like, let's say there's 100 people, out of 100 people, most of the time, 95+% of them won't be visionaries. So those 95 will stop listening. And then, yeah, I mean, I would say our company's partnered with maybe 1 out of 1,000 people. It's less than 100, but let's say there's 100 people listening and maybe 5 get it. Maybe 1 really gets it. And that one person, they won't overthink anything. They'll just be like, hey, would love to connect. Then they'll just do it. Like, to find, when I started first company with zero business background, started after job salary was cut in half, couldn't find a job, incorporated 6 days after turning 40, again, zero business background, over next 6 weeks while reaching while working at full time, half the salary, I reached out to 5,000 people to find first 5 clients. So that's entrepreneur life. Most people can't do that. So
Yeah.
If a visionary heard this and like, here's the answer, they would just do it. They would I need to get this book. I need to reach out to this person. I need to share my story with the world. It's like a magnet.
Mm-hmm. So on that note, where do you hang out on social? Where can people grab your books? Plug away. How can people find out more about you?
Yeah, I mean, I'm on LinkedIn. The main site is brepicllc.com, BREPIC LLC.com. There's a mindset scorecard on there. It's through the strategic coach platform. People really like taking it. And I found people qualify or disqualify themselves with their own mindset. It's really interesting to see that. And the book's called Epic Life. It's all over the world. So.
Awesome. Well, guys, all those will be linked up in the show notes. Get connected, show some love, grab a copy of the book, all that stuff. Justin, last question I have for you. Going all the way back, spending 20 years in the journalism world, salary cut in half, forcing yourself to kind of build this new company, being that quick start, reaching out 5,000 people, 1 in 1,000 become a client, create the next company, building this beautiful family that you have, all the way to where you're at right now, connecting with visionary entrepreneurs every single day.
Yes.
What's been the biggest lesson that you've learned that has yielded the most results and had the biggest impact on
Give
your
me the
life?
answer. Yeah. So chapter 1 of Epic Life is the cream rises to the top. So my dad, World War II hero, became attorney in Nuremberg, Nazi war crimes trial, came from nothing. He came from nothing, no excuses. So he died when I was 13. And then every day he said the cream rises to the top. So we partner with the cream that rises to the top, or those that don't make excuses. They'll do whatever it takes. So that will always be. And then my oldest son is named after him. And the 10-year-old, the oldest son, he's running a 20:38 5K, which is that's he'll probably, he could make the Olympics. He's that good of a runner. And then the 9-year-old wants to be general in Army. And then he was talking to me that he wants to be an entrepreneur as well. So that's what all this other stuff's fine, but without that, it's meaningless to me. So cream rises to the top. That's the number one thing.
I love it. Justin, thank you so much for joining me. I really enjoyed this.
Me too. Excellent simplification and activation by you.
Thank you.